Good evening, everybody. President Trump today at the Mexican border in McAllen, Texas, there to talk about the illegal immigration and border security crisis. And during his visit, the president making it clear once again the need for that wall, why construction on that wall must begin and begin immediately.
They come through the border and they go out throughout our nation. So you'll have crime in Iowa, you'll have crime in New Hampshire, you'll have crime in New York, you'll have crime in places, you know, you don't associate it with the border, but it comes through the border. All I can tell you is that I feel very badly for people that have family members that have been killed that should have never happened, okay? Those are the people I'm thinking most about. These people do the most incredible job. And they're not given a full hand because they need the barriers.
Need the barrier. And tonight we take up exactly why the Democratic Party is trying to subvert the Trump administration on the barrier, on the wall, while why in the world is Schumer and Pelosi refusing to support the president's wall, refusing to build the wall? Why the radical Dems continue their resistance? Nancy Pelosi says no wall. Chuck Schumer says no wall. And oh yes, they want the president to lift the partial government shutdown. Mr. Trump is having none of it. Before leaving Washington, the president told the assembled mostly left-wing national media that the radical Dems aren't remotely serious about national security, about building that wall and securing our southern border. President Trump says he will declare a national emergency and build those barriers if the radical Dems don't yield to the national interest.
I would like to do the deal through Congress, and because it makes sense to do it through Congress, either we're going to win or make a compromise. I'm okay to making a compromise. Compromise is in my vocabulary very strongly. I have the absolute right to declare a national emergency. The lawyers have so advised me. I'm not prepared to do that yet, but if I have to, I will. The Democrats don't care about the border, and they don't care about crime. They've been taken over by a group that's so far left, I really don't think they care about crime. And, you know, sadly, they're viewing this as the beginning of the 2020 presidential race, and that's okay with me.
We take up the president's trip to the border, his resolve to end the national crisis along that border. The Dean of Republican Strategists, Ed Rollins, Congressman Andy Biggs, and Francis Rooney join us here tonight. Also, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo today declared a new age in U.S. Middle East relations. Secretary Pompeo telling an audience in Cairo that the Trump administration is reasserting itself as the regional leader after the Obama-era policy of apology.
When I was in grad school, it was about 10% were in that camp.
Yeah.
So how did it?
Well, we apologize for that. The red storm does continue to rise. Chinese President Xi Jinping hosting North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, suggesting Beijing may be determined to stop any deal between the U.S. and North Korea. We'll be joined by Asia expert Gordon Chang here tonight. Our top story, President Trump taking his call to build a wall or barrier along the U.S.-Mexican border to deal with the immigration and border security crisis. The president meeting with Border Patrol officers, lawmakers, and those who have lost loved ones at the hands of illegal immigrants. President Trump once again making it clear that without border security, we don't have a nation. And here with more now from the White House, Fox Business's Edward Lawrence.
Yeah, Lou, President Donald Trump right now on his way back here to Washington, D.C. He went to Texas to see for himself exactly what it looks like at the border, exactly the situation. He's arguing that we have to have a border wall as part of border security. The president of McAllen, Texas, wants voters to call their Democratic representatives and get them to negotiate with him, engage reopening the government, as well as funding the border wall.
As hard as we work and as well as we're doing nationwide on crime, a lot of it's caused by people that come in through the southern border. So, and you know, if we had the barrier, it wouldn't happen.
And Senator Lindsey Graham late tonight saying that it is time now, since the Democrats refuse to negotiate, to enact and say that the president needs to declare an emergency, saying this is a crisis. This is what the president keeps hearing from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Listen.
So I said to him, Mr. President, the evidence of what's happening there does not support the crisis that you describe and therefore the solution you suggest, because we have a better idea of how to keep our country safe, and it isn't a wall.
And House Democrats continue to pass bill after bill, today passing the Agriculture Appropriations Bill and a Transportation Bill, funding government agencies one at a time. Senator Ben Cardin, Democrat in the Senate, trying to get the Senate to vote on these bills. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell simply saying this is all just a waste of time.
There's a lot of important business the Senate could be tackling. We've typically done that during these government shutdowns. But the last thing we need to do right now is to trade pointless, absolutely pointless show votes back and forth across the aisle.
And this is truly a stalemate with no end in sight unless someone breaks ranks or an emergency declaration is announced. Lou?
And there are no signs of anyone breaking rank. Edward Lawrence, thank you. About 60 miles from where President Trump was speaking today about the crime and the crisis along our southern border, nearly 24 bodies were found in what appears to be the result of a mass killing involving rival drug cartels there at the border. The bodies were found near burned-out trucks. Some of the bodies burned as well. The area has been a conduit for drug shipments into and out of the United States and has experienced some of the worst violence in Mexico's drug wars. The discovery comes as radical leftists like Beto O'Rourke claim the southern border is one of the safest places in the country. Wow. Well, our first guest tonight to talk about the president's efforts to secure our borders, to fix our broken immigration system. Joining us tonight, Congressman Francis Rooney, member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, also former U.S. ambassador to the Vatican. Congressman, great to have you with us. Let's start with the claims by the left, whether it's Schumer, whether it's Pelosi, whomever it may be, on the left, that there's no crisis on the border, that there is no problem because we've got 70,000 opioid deaths a year in this country, far more, as you know, than were killed than in the Vietnam War. How can these preposterous claims be made without response from the national left-wing media, without response, in some cases, from the Republican Party itself?
Yeah, we definitely have a problem here on many levels. And the fact that they're trying to wash it under the rug and say no wall is reflective of their kind of lack of reality. You know, as far back as the case of Chai Chien-ping in 1889, the Supreme Court said that a sovereign has the ability, as part of being a sovereign, to determine who goes in and out of their country. And we don't seem to want, the Democrats don't seem to want to do that. We have got to stop wanton, reckless, unpatrolled entry across our border.
And it's very clear, and the president alluded to this today at the border. This is a very simple thing. Pelosi and Schumer are simply denying the president the funding for the wall because they realize that that is the last major promise he has made to the voters that he has not fulfilled. And when he fulfills that, he will be a juggernaut in 2020, and that's what they're fighting, don't you think?
Well, I'll tell you, this president has done what he said he would do. I think it's refreshing to see a business guy come in from outside of politics and just do what he said he would do. And now we need to finish it off with this wall.
Well, finish it off with a wall, but Pelosi says it's not going to happen. Schumer says it's not going to happen. And it's obvious that they're playing presidential politics, trying to block this president on his last and fulfilling his last major promise to the voters of 2016. Don't you agree?
I do agree. I think that it shouldn't be about political posturing. It should be about protecting Americans and protecting our sovereignty and making our border impenetrable.
And I want to take up the Rio Grande sector, law enforcement there telling the president during his tour that there's a greater number of apprehensions here of late than in previous months. And already we're seeing a significant travel across that border by smugglers, drug smugglers, human smugglers. What is your sense of what the president can do here next? Should he continue to invite the Democrats over for tea, or should he just say, you know, it's time for a national declaration of emergency?
Well, I don't think I would want to be bluffing with President Trump, seeing the way he's operated so far. He may well get to the point where he tries it on and we find out if it'll stick or not. You know, you mentioned the Valley. I have great experience in the Valley. I've had a lot of business down there, and the disproportionate number of the crossings take place in the eastern part of the Rio Grande Valley. We really need to secure that area.
Yeah, we need to secure that area. As far as I can tell, looking across that whole run of 2,000 miles that make up the Mexican-U.S. border, we need to secure the whole thing. This idea of picking and choosing, I've never seen it work anywhere.
Right.
Because what happens is that they simply are diverted by whatever wall or barrier or fence, and it's time for everybody on both sides of that border to grow up, because there's corruption on both sides, and that corruption is what's keeping that border open, whether it's drug traffic, human smuggling, whether it's the cartels. This has got to stop.
Well, the countries of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador are not going to improve no matter what anybody tries to do in the near future. This crisis of caravans and migrants trying to get through Mexico to the United States is not going to stop. We have to defend our border.
Defend our border, indeed. And also you and Senator Ted Cruz, another a border state senator, if there ever were one, calling for term limits. You've got co-sponsors and moving ahead. It's an interesting idea, one whose time, I think most people right now would say it's an idea whose time has come.
Well, you know, 80% or more of all Americans, of all subsets, groups, identities, etc., say they want term limits. The only people who don't want term limits are the entrenched politicians in D.C. Maybe that's why people will give Congress an 11% approval rating.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. I can think of a host of others as well. Congressman, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lou, for having me on.
You bet. Congressman Francis Rooney.